Genshin Impact is losing a race that it had a 4-year head start in to Wuthering Waves. Now, if that statement is one that triggers or upsets you, I hate to break it to you, but you may or may not be in a bit of denial. Now, hear me out. I am not the one that's giving you a slap in the face. It is Hoyo who is doing that themselves. And if there is any company that has made that abundantly clear, that has happened with the introduction of Kuro Games' Wuthering Waves. You know the saying of comparison is the thief of joy. And now that statement is one that does make sense when we're thinking of it in terms of, personal relationships and comparing yourself to other people. However, that statement doesn't necessarily stay true when it comes to businesses. When it comes to business, competition breeds excellence. And for the longest amount of time, Genshin Impact was really the only major gacha game. MiHoYo has kind of been a bit of a, house of mouse of, having these multiple gacha games and not having any real competition. And we've just seen them constantly crank out the bare minimum year after year after year. And now, after the introduction of Wuthering Waves, we are barely now starting to see things such as, for example, a free 5-star selector, which we all know damn well the only reason why we got that was because of Wuthering Waves. And now, we are about to see artifact loadouts in Wuthering Waves before we do see, not artifact, echo loadouts in Wuthering Waves before we see artifact loadouts in Genshin Impact. And I'm almost willing to bet money on it that in the next live stream or two of Genshin Impact, they're most likely going to announce that they are introducing artifact loadouts, and they're going to introduce it like they're doing this grand thing for us, when in reality we all know damn well why we're finally going to get them. But don't get me wrong, my intention with this video is not to just bash on Genshin in any way I possibly can. And it's not going to be to just blindly praise Wuthering Waves any way I can. I'm just a casual gamer. I enjoy playing these games. These are the games that I play most of the time now. And I figured it's time I start making videos on them. And I'll use this one as a pilot just to kind of air my thoughts out on both of these games. I do enjoy playing both, although I would rather say that I am trying to enjoy Genshin and I'm actually enjoying Wuthering Waves. But nonetheless, I do consider myself a fan of both of these games. I will say that Genshin Impact was my first gacha game, and I've put in a vast amount of time and money. I wouldn't say that I necessarily whaled out like crazy, but I guess dolphin spending. I do have 3,800 hours spent in this game just on my PlayStation 5 alone, although there's probably a decent chunk of that time that I just was the AFK. I do tend to leave my console on when I shouldn't. That's a bad habit of mine, but I've played this a lot. I'm a Raiden main. That's my girl. This is a game I put a lot of time and effort in. I've always enjoyed this game. I've always had fun playing it. However, there have been just a lot of nuances, a lot of things that have just slightly annoyed me that I would just put up with. One thing, for example, is just not having a skip button. There's no excuse why there shouldn't be one. And Wuwa added that in launch, and there's literally no reason to not have one. All it is just giving the players a choice. There's no reason players should not have a choice, with anything. I do understand why there's this discourse between Genshin and Wuthering Waves players of this war or whatever. As someone who's just unbiased and just plays both, it's just a fact that Wuthering Waves is giving choices to players that Genshin Impact is not, and they should be. There's no reason why there shouldn't be those choices. If you enjoy the story and you love it and you think a skip button is the worst thing in the world, well, sick. You have the choice to not skip through it and enjoy it at your own accord. And that's what makes gaming beautiful. That's what makes life beautiful. Everyone has a choice to enjoy it how they see fit, but when it comes down to the reality of just playing Genshin Impact as a game, they're not really giving players much choices. In fact, the only choices that we have been having as of late have been clearly as a result of this new competition that has been added into the scene. The fact that Genshin Impact has now been copying individual parts of Wuthering Waves' traversal and locking it behind a specific character's kit. Talent domains being locked to specific days in Genshin, whereas in Wuthering Waves they're available any day of the week. You can do as much as you want, whenever you want. It once again going back to having a choice. Multiple weekly boss chances. How in Wuthering Waves you can, when a new character comes out like Carlotta in 2.0 and you need to catch up on the weekly mats for her in order to level up her abilities as high as you can, as soon as you can, you're able to do that 3 times in a row for her immediately once she's introduced in the game. Whereas in this game, when Mavuika comes out, you can only run the boss needed to get to potentially get her materials once a week. And in that one time you run it, chances are you may not even get the one that you need for her. And further chances are you may not even get a dream solvent, which is the thing that you need in order to convert whatever you get into the material you need for her. And one thing that I really want to go into specifics about, in Genshin Impact, any difficulty, it's artificial difficulty. And what I mean by that is that, like, nothing is truly difficult in terms of just, like, playing it. It's difficult in terms of, do you have the right characters or the right team? The clear-cut example right now is like in the current Abyss with the Papilla or any of like the enemies where you need Night Soul mechanics to more quickly break their shields, whereas it's still possible without Night Soul mechanics, but like ideally you're gonna want Night Soul mechanics. That's an example right there, a clear-cut example where it's made difficult if you don't have specific characters. And when it comes to Wuthering Waves difficulty, I mentioned that Genshin earlier has artificial difficulty. I guess when it comes to Wuthering Waves, I would probably say that it's more of like raw difficulty, like in terms of just like the reaction time or just rhythm of being able to dodge and parry on time. It is something that you need to take the time to practice and get good at. Also, one thing that really frustrated me, and I don't really see much people talking about this, is that it was 2 or 3 months ago. I was like, I really want to, like, I've been playing this game for a while. I have a pretty built, roster. Like, I should be clearing theater. Like, that's what I was telling myself. So I went ahead and I spent like somewhere between like 15 plus fragile resin to quickly build to the bare minimum level 70. I did that for like 6 characters during this one period of theater, and I was able to clear it barely. And then once the next theater reset hit, it was either like 4 or 5 characters that were trial characters that I had just recently put in the resin to have in my theater roster, to whereas now, let's say it was 4, now 4 of them did not count as like roster positions for me because they were here as trial characters, so I had to build 4 more the next month, like in order to clear. But it was at that point I was like, okay, no, screw this, this is gonna be ridiculous. I'm just gonna wait until I can just like naturally be able to clear theater and not like lose hair trying to be able to do it consistently every month in a row. One discussion I'd like to bring up, and I am really curious to hear your guys' take on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't the timeline kind of look like this? So Genshin comes out, Hoyo's putting most of their effort into developing this game and making it a good thing. Then some time comes later, and Honkai Star Rail comes out. And when Honkai Star Rail comes out, they have some more quality of life and just some factors to the game that Genshin does not have, that Genshin players have been wanting to have for quite some time. Like, for example, a resin bank, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Honkai Star Rail had that when it initially came out. And if I'm not mistaken, this is where the term Genshin could never was coined. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then, fast forward a little bit later, ZZZ comes out, and they're, putting effort into making that game as best as they can. Now that ZZZ is out, now I'm starting to see people express issues with Honkai Star Rail, like in terms of power creep and it just being predatory, where like that wasn't a problem before until ZZZ came out. I don't know. To me, it just it feels a little fishy. It feels like there may or may not, behind closed doors, be this specific business model where they go all in on one game, hook as many people as they can on this game, and then just give those customers, shit while they go all in on another game, and they just, milk this old game as long as they can because they've already built this, blind following on it. And, they'll just continue playing them regardless of what we do for them. So we'll put all our resources, our effort, our money into this new game to get people on something new in the meantime. I don't know. To me, it just feels like that. Let me know what you guys think. This is just speculation. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I haven't played those games. But it's just, something as an outsider looking in. I consume a lot of gacha content. I watch a lot of gacha content creators and just hear them talk about these different games, even though I don't necessarily play them. But I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. So please feel free to chime in on the comments and let me know what you think about that. Full transparency here. The only real complaint I have is that they haven't addressed the Echo XP issue. To be honest, nothing else really to complain about. I'm happy with it. I mean, they listened to the players. They addressed everything aside from Echo XP almost immediately and fix it immediately. They give players choices where pretty much wherever possible. And yeah, they're giving players what Genshin refuses to give their players, and what they have been refusing to give players for years. And the fact that it's taking another competitor to come into the game and introduce that, fear of competition in order to get Genshin to start implementing some new quality of life, it's sad. One thing that I do have to praise with this game, and I can't really show you in detail right now because I've 100%ed the whole new Renacita region, and the reason why I've done this so quick is because they made it so damn easy to do this. Literally, what's it called? The chest finders or the treasure compass, whatever they're called. I forgot what they were called in this game exactly. You don't even need those in this area. They're obsolete because literally on PlayStation you would like click left thumbstick to take you to this top left corner right under where it shows the region. There would be like I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, but I just feel like no one really talked about it enough of how convenient it made it to play the new region. For any Genshin fans that like just hate on Wuwa and complain about it, if you don't like the game, that's all good for you. But like you can't deny the fact that having this other game, this rival, this competitor in the space is making your game better. You can't deny that. If you made it this far in the video, thank you. I am curious just to generate some discussion and hear you guys' thoughts. If you disagree with me, feel free to share. I'm not coming after anyone. I'm just sharing my thoughts on these games. Perhaps there's quite a few people out there that may or may not feel the same way that I do. I still plan on playing both these games. I actually have 3 gacha games in rotation right now. I also play Infinity and Nikki. I doubt there might be much crossover. If you do play all 3 of those, please let me know. Let me know what gacha games are you playing. What are your thoughts on both these companies? What are your thoughts on these games? I want to hear the things you like, you dislike. Please feel free to share. I know I rambled off a little bit. I know this probably wasn't the best video. I'm not going to lie. It was a little bit anxiety inducing recording myself for the first time like this in a couple years. But I play both these games a lot. And I figured it might be time for me to start making videos. Thank you so much, and I will catch you in the next one. Arrivederci.